I only thought about her, then she turned and purred. Careful, human. I can hear everything. Damien's hands trembled against the flight controls. The simulation threw another hostile at him, a sharp red blip on his tactical display that shouldn't exist. His suppressor implant pulsed against his temple, trying to force the chemical calm back into his bloodstream. But something was wrong. The fear came anyway, hot and electric down his spine, followed by a rush of adrenaline that made his vision sharpen. He banked hard left, feeling the G-forces press against his chest. The hostile locked on. His heartbeat thundered in his ears, a sound he shouldn't be able to hear over his own thoughts. In a telepathic civilization, panic was information, a distraction. His people had been taught to suppress it, evolve past it. But right now that fear told him exactly where to move. Damien cut the engines and let momentum carry him into a spin. The hostile's tracking lost him for half a second. He reignited thrusters, fired, and the simulation dissolved into white. Simulation complete. Time 4 minutes, 18 seconds, new personal record. The cockpit opened with a hiss. Damien's hands were still shaking. Commander Blackwell stood at the debriefing station, his face as empty as everyone else's on the base. Smooth, emotionless, the product of a properly functioning suppressor. He tapped his tablet, pale eyes scanning data that would tell him everything about Damien's neural patterns during the test. Your reaction time improved by 32%, Blackwell said. Yes, sir. Your neural suppressant readings show significant fluctuation. Damien's jaw tightened. I completed the mission. Through erratic decision-making. Blackwell looked up, and for a moment something almost like concern crossed his features. Almost. Report to your quarters. You're grounded pending evaluation. The word evaluation landed like a physical blow. Damien felt his pulse spike again, felt the suppressor struggle and failed to contain it. He nodded once and left before Blackwell could see his hands curl into fists. The base corridors were sterile white, lit by panels that never flickered. Other humans passed him without acknowledgement, their faces serene, their thoughts neatly contained behind properly medicated minds. Damien had grown up learning that emotions were humanity's greatest flaw, the reason they'd nearly destroyed themselves before the Galactic Coalition had intervened, uplifted them, fixed them. He reached his quarters and the door sealed behind him. Only then did he let out the breath he'd been holding. His suppressor was failing. He'd known for weeks but hadn't reported it, hadn't requested the maintenance required, because some part of him, some buried, forbidden part, wanted to feel things, wanted to know what fear tasted like, what anger felt like burning in his chest. The door chimed. Damien straightened, forced his breathing to steady. Enter! She walked in like a predator entering claimed territory. Damien had seen other species before. The coalition was vast, containing hundreds of telepathic races, but he'd never seen anyone like her. Pale skin that seemed to catch the light, sharp features that were almost human except for the delicate furred ears that swiveled toward him as she entered. Her eyes were amber, slit-pupilled, tracking his every movement. She wore a dark uniform that hugged her frame, marked with the silver insignia of a coalition enforcer. Damien Cross, she said, her voice smooth and precise. That's me. I am Ashara. I've been assigned to conduct your evaluation. She moved closer, and Damien became acutely aware of the space between them. His suppressor pulsed harder, trying to flatten the response her presence triggered. It didn't work. Heat crawled up his neck. The evaluation was supposed to be next week, he said. Your neural patterns flagged you as high priority. She circled him slowly, those amber eyes studying him like he was something to be dissected. Your suppressor is failing. I'm still functional. Functionally emotional. She stopped in front of him, close enough that he could smell something floral and foreign on her skin. Do you know what happens to humans who can't control their emotions? Damien, re-education. If they're lucky, her ears twitched. Sit. He sat on the edge of his bunk. Ashara pulled a device from her belt, a neural scanner, standard issue for evaluations. She moved behind him, and he felt her fingers brush his temple as she positioned the scanner nodes against his skin. The touch sent electricity down his arm. Remain still, she said. The scanner hummed to life. Damien tried to think of nothing, tried to be the blank slate the Coalition wanted. But all he could think about was her standing behind him, her breath steady and controlled, her fingers still resting lightly against his jaw to hold the scanner in place. The lights flickered. Ashara's hand tightened on his shoulder. The scanner's hum became a high-pitched whine, and then something cracked inside Damien's skull. Not painful, but sudden and absolute, like a door being kicked open. Ashara stumbled backward, and the scanner clattered to the floor. Her eyes were wide, pupils blown, one hand pressed to her chest. She was breathing hard. Her composed mask shattered. "What?" she started. Then she froze, her ears flattened against her skull. Damien's heart was racing, and he watched in horror as her expression shifted. Shock, confusion, and something else he couldn't name. She was looking at him like he'd just screamed, but he hadn't made a sound. "You're afraid," she whispered. He hadn't said that, hadn't thought it in words. But yes, he was terrified because he knew what had just happened. The scanner malfunction had created a bridge, a connection that shouldn't exist between human and telepath. She could feel everything he was feeling. "Careful, human," Ashara said, her voice unsteady. "I can hear everything." Ashara's fingers dug into the wall panel behind her, claws extending slightly into the metal. Damien watched her chest rise and fall too quickly, watched her fight for the composure that had been absolute moments ago. "Are you all right?" he asked. The question hit her like a wave. He saw it in the way her ears swiveled back, the way her lips parted. She was feeling his concern, genuine, unprompted concern for her well-being, and had no framework for processing it. "Don't," she said sharply. "Don't what?" "Don't feel things at me." She pushed off the wall, pacing the small space of his quarters. "This isn't possible. Humans don't have telepathic capability. You're neurologically isolated." "I'm not doing anything." "You're doing everything." She turned on him, and the look in her amber eyes was almost accusation. "Every thought, every response, I can feel it flooding through. Do you understand how loud you are?" Damien stood slowly, hands raised in a placating gesture. The movement made her tense, made her shift her weight to the balls of her feet. Predator stance. He filed that information away and stayed very still. "Can you break it?" he asked. "The connection?" She was quiet for a long moment. He felt his own pulse in his throat, felt the suppressor working overtime to try and calm him. It was like trying to hold back a tide. "I don't know," she admitted. "I need to report this." Fear spiked through him, sharp and immediate. Ashara flinched. "No," he said, "you can't. This is a neural anomaly. Protocol demands you turn me over for re-education." The words came out harder than he intended. Or worse, you know what they do to humans who are too emotional. Her jaw worked. She did know. He could see it in her face, in the way she wouldn't quite meet his eyes. "I'm an enforcer," she said. "My duty is to the Coalition." "Your duty is to evaluate whether I'm a threat." He took a careful step toward her. "Am I?" She studied him, really studied him, and he felt the weight of her attention like a physical thing. When she spoke again, her voice was quieter. "I don't know what you are." The comm panel on the wall chirped before Damien could respond. Commander Blackwell's voice cut through the tension. "All active pilots to briefing room. We have a situation." Ashara moved to the door, then paused. "Come with me. I'm not letting you out of supervision." The briefing room was controlled chaos. Pilots gathered around the central holo display where Blackwell stood, his expression more animated than Damien had seen in months. That alone told him something was seriously wrong. 16 hours ago, a medical transport went dark in the Helix sector, Blackwell said. Last transmission indicated critical systems failure near the anomaly zone, 83 souls on board. The hologram showed a region of space marked in red, unstable, dangerous, filled with gravitational eddies that could tear a ship apart. Damien had flown near it once. Once was enough. "Recovery teams?" someone asked. "Can't reach them in time. The transport's orbit is decaying." Blackwell's eyes swept the room and landed on Damien. "Cross, you're our best pilot in zero-gravity operations." "He's grounded," Ashara said from behind him, every head turned toward her, "under evaluation." "Then evaluate him in the field," Blackwell's tone left no room for argument. We need him, now. The ship they assigned was a standard rescue corvette, fast, maneuverable, designed for exactly this kind of operation. Damien ran through pre-flight while Ashara strapped into the co-pilot seat, her movements precise despite the unfamiliar human-designed harness. "I've never flown with your kind before," she said. "First time for everything." Damien engaged the engines, felt the familiar hum through the deck plating. "You might want to hold on." They launched and the base fell away beneath them. The void opened up, vast and cold, sprinkled with distant stars. Damien plotted their approach vector, fingers moving across the controls with practiced efficiency. "The anomaly zone generates unpredictable gravitational fluctuations," Ashara said, reading from her tactical display. "Standard navigation won't work. You'll have to fly by instinct." "That's the idea." She looked at him then, really looked at him, and he felt something shift in her expression. Curiosity, maybe, or the beginning of understanding. They found the transport listing badly, its hull scarred by impacts with debris. Life signs were weak but present. Damien brought them alongside, matching the transport's awkward tumble through his own careful adjustments to thrust and yaw. "Docking in this rotation is suicide," Ashara said. "It's the only way to get them out." He felt her fear spike through the connection, not for herself, but for him. The realization hit them both at the same time. She cared whether he survived this, and that caring was entirely unlike anything her species was supposed to experience. "Trust me," he said. Damien cut main engines and used maneuvering thrusters to slip into the transport's rotation. The world spun outside the viewport. Stars, darkness, the transport's hull, stars again. His stomach lurched, but his hand stayed steady. He felt Ashara's presence in his mind, felt her watching, measuring, beginning to understand how he could do this. He wasn't thinking, he was feeling. Every adjustment came from instinct, from reading the way the ship moved and responding before conscious thought could slow him down. The docking clamps engaged with a shudder. "Seal confirmed," Ashara said quietly. "That was reckless? Extraordinary." They worked through the rescue in focused silence, moving the survivors through the airlock one at a time. Some were injured, some were barely conscious. All of them were terrified, their emotions bleeding out in waves that their suppressors couldn't contain under this kind of stress. Ashara felt every one of them through Damien's perception. They got the last survivor aboard, just as the transport's orbit decayed past recovery. Damien pulled away, pushed the engines hard, and they cleared the anomaly zone with seconds to spare. Behind them, the transport crumpled into a gravitational eddy and vanished. The Corvette's cabin was quiet, except for the soft breathing of the survivors in the hold behind them. Damien's hands were shaking again. The adrenaline crash hit him all at once. Relief, exhaustion, the weight of 83 lives that had almost been lost. Ashara unbuckled from her harness and crossed to his seat. She stood beside him close enough that her hip touched his shoulder. "You saved them," she said. "We saved them." "No." Her hand rested on his shoulder, warm through the fabric of his flight suit. "Your fear made you faster. Your determination kept you focused. Your hope gave you the strength to try something that should have failed." She paused. "Your emotions didn't make you weak. They made you capable of this." Damien looked up at her, and for the first time since the bond formed, he let himself really feel what he'd been suppressing. The attraction, the fascination, the desperate desire to understand what was happening between them. Her pupils dilated, her breath caught. "Damien," she said, and his name in her mouth sounded like a warning and an invitation all at once. "What are emotions called?" he asked. "When you can't stop thinking about someone." She knew the answer. He could see it in her face, in the way her claws flexed against his shoulder. "Desire," Ashara whispered. The observation deck was empty at this hour. Ashara stood at the viewport, her reflection ghostly against the void. Damien watched her from across the room, aware of every small movement, every shift of her ears. "I've been researching your species," she said without turning. "Find anything interesting. Before the Coalition intervened, you nearly destroyed yourselves. Wars driven by anger and fear, the suppressors were meant to save you." She finally turned to face him. "But today, Your fear made you faster. Your determination kept you focused. How? It just happens. It doesn't for my people. We evolved beyond emotion 3,000 years ago. Her voice carried an edge he hadn't heard before. We made ourselves perfect, logical, efficient. We removed the chaos. And what else did you remove? She closed the distance between them. When I feel what you feel, it's like I've been living in darkness and someone turned on the lights. Everything is brighter. Her hand rose to his chest, palm flat against his heartbeat. Show me what hope feels like. Damien covered her hand with his. It feels like this, like standing here with you and thinking maybe something good could happen. And desire? He let himself feel it fully, the want that had been building since she'd walked into his quarters, the hunger to know what her skin tasted like. He let it pour through the bond, unfiltered. Ashara's breath hitched, her claws pricked through his shirt. That's, she started. Too much? Not enough. Before either could move, his comm chirped. Damien activated it reluctantly. Cross, report to my office, Blackwell said. Bring the enforcer. Blackwell's office was sparse. The commander stood behind his desk, expression neutral. The council wants a report on today's rescue, he said. They're particularly interested in your performance. His gaze shifted to Ashara. And your evaluation. My evaluation is ongoing, she said smoothly. Then continue it elsewhere. He tapped his tablet. A mission brief appeared on the wall screen. Research facility in the Outer Reach went dark 6 hours ago. You two will investigate. Damien studied the coordinates, far from central systems, isolated. Why us? Because the council specifically requested you both. Blackwell's tone made it clear he found this unusual. Ship leaves in 4 hours. The assigned ship was small, a 2-person scout with cramped quarters. They'd be alone together for at least 3 days. Damien felt Ashara's awareness of that fact through the bond. The flight was smooth until they crossed into the Outer Reach. The bond between them had been growing stronger. Now Damien could pick up fragments of thought, impressions that felt like her voice in his head. This is dangerous. He glanced at her. What is? She stiffened. You heard that? I think so. The bond is evolving. Your neural patterns are synchronizing with mine. But he felt something else through the connection, excitement mixed with something warmer. We're changing each other. The research facility appeared on sensors, a dark cluster of modules anchored to an asteroid. No lights, no power signatures, no life signs. They docked carefully and entered through the main airlock. Emergency lighting cast everything in red. The corridors were empty, equipment abandoned mid-use. Whatever happened, it was fast, Ashara said. They moved deeper, checking each module, labs filled with dead monitors, living quarters with scattered personal effects. Then Damien spotted it, a sealed door marked restricted. That's not on the public layout. Ashara bypassed the lock with her enforcer codes. The door opened onto stairs carved into the asteroid itself. At the bottom, another sealed door. The room beyond was a command center. Weapons displays lined the walls. Tactical readouts showed star systems marked with strike patterns. A massive hologram projected anomaly zones spreading through the galaxy. What is this? Damien breathed. Ashara moved to the nearest console, fingers flying across the interface. He felt her emotions shift through the bond, confusion to shock to horror. No, she whispered. What did you find? She pulled up a file. The hologram changed, showing weapons deployment patterns, classified coalition signatures, launch codes. The anomalies aren't natural. They're weapons, created by the coalition high command. She pulled up more files. They're targeting systems with incompatible species, civilizations that refuse to join. Why would they? Control, purification. Her claws dug into the console edge. And humans. The files reference suppressor failure rates. They're testing whether your emotions have been adequately neutralized. The weight crashed over them both. Every emotion Damien felt Ashara experienced, his rage, his betrayal, his fear. My people did this, she said. The council I've served, they're monsters. Ashara, I've been evaluating you, determining if humans are too emotional to be trusted, but the whole time, the real test was whether you were broken enough to be safe. Tears tracked down her cheeks. You were never the threat. We were. Damien crossed to her, pulled her into his arms. She collapsed against him, shaking, experiencing grief for the first time. He held her while she broke, felt her pain mixing with his through the bond. We have to stop this, he said. How? I'm one enforcer, you're one pilot. Then we get proof, we expose them. She looked up at him. That would make me a traitor. She stared at him, then slowly nodded. The console behind her exploded. Damien grabbed Ashara and threw them both sideways as shrapnel tore through the space where they'd been standing. The blast knocked the air from his lungs. Smoke filled the chamber, acrid and thick. Security protocol, Ashara gasped against his chest. The system detected unauthorized access. Red lights strobed through the haze. A synthesized voice echoed from hidden speakers. Facility lockdown initiated, all exits sealed, atmospheric purge in 10 minutes. They're going to vent the air, Damien said. Ashara was already moving, pulling him toward the door. It had sealed shut, heavy blast plating sliding into place. She slammed her palm against the control panel. Nothing. Override codes aren't working. Damien scanned the room. The hologram still flickered, casting ghosts of light through the smoke. His mind raced, that same instinct that had saved the transport crew rising through the fear. The ventilation, he said. These old facilities have manual maintenance shafts. Too small for... Not for me. He found the grate in the ceiling, wrenched it free. The shaft beyond was narrow, barely wide enough for his shoulders. Ashara stared up at it. I can't fit through that, she said. I know, but I can reach the main control room and override the lockdown. He pulled himself up into the shaft. Stay here. I'll come back for you. Damien. He felt her fear spike through the bond, sharp and overwhelming. Not fear for herself, fear for him. Trust me, he said, and pushed forward into darkness. The shaft was cramped, hot, every surface edged with rust. Damien crawled through pitch black, following the metal conduits that had to lead somewhere central. His shoulders scraped against the walls. Sweat dripped into his eyes. Through the bond, he felt Ashara's presence like an anchor. Her fear, yes, but also something else. Faith. She believed he could do this. The shaft opened into a junction. 3 directions, no markings. Damien closed his eyes, let his instinct guide him. Left felt wrong. Right felt empty. Forward felt like... this way. Ashara's voice in his head, clear as spoken words. The bond had strengthened enough that she could guide him telepathically. He moved forward. The shaft descended sharply. Damien half slid down the incline, metal screaming under his weight. He caught himself on a junction point, muscles burning, and pushed through another grate. The control room was small, automated, filled with blinking panels. Damien dropped from the ceiling and immediately went to work, fingers flying across interfaces he'd never seen before, but somehow understood. Ashara's knowledge, flowing through the bond, her enforcer training giving him access to systems that should be locked. Atmospheric purge in 3 minutes. He found the lockdown protocols, started unraveling them. Each layer required different access codes. He felt Ashara feeding them to him through their connection, her mind and his working as one. 2 minutes. The final encryption fought him. Damien's hands shook, adrenaline and fear mixing into something electric. He thought about Ashara trapped in that chamber, thought about losing her before he'd even had the chance to... The lock broke. Lockdown canceled, atmospheric purge aborted. Damien slumped against the console, breathing hard. Through the bond, he felt Ashara's relief crash over him like a wave. I'm coming, he thought at her, hoping she could hear. I know, came her reply. He found her in the chamber, covered in soot, but alive. She looked up as he entered, and something shifted in her expression. He'd come back for her. Against impossible odds, through fear and danger, he'd come back. She crossed to him in 3 strides and kissed him. The bond exploded between them, every emotion amplified, reflected, doubled. Her desire crashed into his and ricocheted back stronger. Damien's hands found her waist, pulling her closer, feeling her warmth through the tactical gear. She tasted like smoke and something sweeter, something uniquely her. Her claws scraped against his shoulders, not quite breaking skin. A warning and an invitation. He backed her against the wall, and she made a sound low in her throat that sent heat straight through him. "Damien," she breathed against his mouth. He kissed down her jaw, found the sensitive spot where her ear connected to her skull. She shuddered, her fingers digging into his back. "We need to," she started, but he kissed her again and she forgot whatever she'd been about to say. The bond carried everything between them. His hunger for her, her fascination with these new sensations, the desperate need they both felt to be closer. When his hands slid under her uniform top, finding bare skin, her gasp echoed in both their minds. "Is this?" he managed. "Yes," she said, and then through the bond, "Don't stop." They found the facility's living quarters, a small room with a bunk meant for researchers. Damien sealed the door, while Ashara shed her outer uniform, her movements precise, despite the trembling in her hands. She'd never done this before, never felt desire like this, never wanted someone with this intensity. He crossed to her slowly, giving her time to change her mind. She didn't. "Show me," she said, echoing her words from the observation deck. "Show me what this feels like." He showed her. Every touch amplified through the bond. When his mouth traced the line of her collarbone, she felt both his desire and her own response doubled back. When her claws raked down his spine, he experienced the satisfaction she felt at marking him. They learned each other through sensation and emotion, through the unique intimacy of minds as connected as bodies. She was different from human women, stronger, more flexible, with heightened senses that made every touch electric. When he found spots that made her purr, the vibration traveled through both of them. When she used her enhanced reflexes to reverse their positions, the dominance and submission played out in their shared consciousness. "I never knew," she gasped against his shoulder. "I never knew it could be like this." "Neither did I," he admitted, "because it wasn't like this for anyone else. This was unique to them, to this impossible bond that shouldn't exist." Afterward, they lay tangled together in the narrow bunk. Ashara's head rested on his chest, her ear pressed over his still-racing heartbeat. Her fingers traced patterns on his skin. "We can't go back," she said quietly. "After this, after what we've discovered, they'll know." "Then we don't go back. Not yet." Damien ran his hand through her hair, careful of her sensitive ears. "We get proof, real proof, enough to expose what they've done. The Coalition will hunt us. Let them try." She lifted her head to look at him. "You'd risk everything? Your career, your life? For you, for the truth?" He cupped her face, thumb brushing her cheekbone, without question. Through the bond, she felt the absolute certainty behind his words. No doubt, no hesitation. Just the fierce determination that had saved the transport crew, that had gotten him through the maintenance shaft, that had brought him back to her. "Then we do this together," she said. "Together." She kissed him again, softer this time, promise and partnership sealed in touch. Outside, the facility's emergency systems continued their automated cycles, unaware that everything had changed. Two people who shouldn't be able to connect had forged a bond that would either save the galaxy or doom them both. Damien pulled Ashara closer and decided he was willing to find out which. They spent 3 hours downloading everything from the facility's servers, deployment schedules, weapons specifications, communication logs between Prelit Sorn and facility commanders. Each file was another nail in the Coalition's coffin. Damien watched Ashara work, her fingers dancing across the interface with practiced efficiency. She'd changed since the bond formed. The cold enforcer who'd walked into his quarters 4 days ago was gone, replaced by someone who smiled when she caught him staring, who reached for his hand when the evidence got particularly damning. "This is enough," she said finally, "enough to prove what they've done. How do we distribute it? The Council controls all major communication networks." "Not all of them." She pulled up a star chart. "There's a relay station at the edge of Coalition space, independent, operated by Navigator Kess. They run an underground information network." "You know them?" "We have history." A faint smile touched her lips. "Kess helped me once when I had questions about Coalition policy that my superiors didn't want answered. They're trustworthy." Damien studied the coordinates. "That's 2 days from here. We'll need to resupply." There's a supply depot one jump away, automated. We can get what we need without being detected. They gathered what they could from the facility and returned to their ship. As they prepared for departure, Damien felt something shift through the bond. Ashara's determination, yes, but underneath it, fear. "What's wrong?" he asked. She was quiet for a moment, staring out at the stars beyond the viewport. "Once we transmit this data, everything changes. My people will see me as a traitor. I'll never be able to go home." Damien moved behind her, wrapped his arms around her waist. She leaned back against him. "You'll have a new home," he said, "with me. And if they hunt us, if they never stop, then we keep running, or we stand and fight." He pressed a kiss to the junction of her neck and shoulder, felt her shiver. "Whatever comes, we face it together." Through the bond, his certainty steadied her. She turned in his arms and kissed him, pouring gratitude and affection through their connection. The jump to the supply depot was smooth. They docked with the automated station and split up to gather supplies more efficiently. Damien was in the armory section, loading spare power cells, when the bond suddenly screamed with Ashara's alarm. He dropped everything and ran. He found her in the main storage bay, facing 3 figures in coalition military gear. Not station security, not local patrol, Black Ops team, judging by their unmarked armor and the way they'd positioned themselves to control the exits. "Enforcer Ashara," the lead operative said. "You're ordered to return to headquarters for debriefing." "On whose authority?" Ashara's voice was level, but Damien felt her heart racing through the bond. Prelate Sorn, along with the human Damien Cross. So they knew. Somehow they'd tracked them here. Damien stepped into the bay, drawing the operative's attention. 3 against 2. Poor odds, except he and Ashara weren't just 2 anymore. "Left one is nervous," Ashara's voice whispered through his mind. "His grip is too tight. He'll shoot first." Damien shifted his weight subtly, putting himself in a better position. "The leader is telepathic. Strong. I can feel him trying to read you." "He can't, you're blocking it." The realization hit them simultaneously. The bond made Ashara partially opaque to telepathic scanning because Damien's human consciousness created interference. They had an advantage. "We're not going anywhere," Damien said. That wasn't a request. The leader raised his weapon. Ashara moved first, her enhanced reflexes carrying her across the distance before the operative could fire. She disarmed him with brutal efficiency, using his own momentum to slam him into the wall. The nervous one spun toward her, and Damien was already moving, training and instinct combining to put him inside the operative's guard. The third operative fired. The shot missed Damien by centimeters because Ashara had felt the intention through the telepathic network and warned him through the bond. He ducked, rolled, came up with the nervous operative's dropped weapon. They fought as one organism. What Ashara sensed telepathically, she fed to Damien. What Damien felt through instinct, he broadcast through the bond. The operatives were trained, dangerous, but they'd never encountered anything like this hybrid fighting style. The leader recovered, using his telepathy to try and overwhelm Ashara's mind. Damien felt her stumble, felt the psychic pressure crushing down. He grabbed her hand, and his human mind, loud, emotional, unpredictable, created enough interference to break the hold. Together, they took down the third operative. Silence settled over the bay, 3 unconscious bodies, Damien and Ashara breathing hard, hands still clasped. "They'll send more," Ashara said. "Then we move faster." They bound the operatives, wiped their comm systems, and launched within minutes. The ship pushed hard through hyperspace, every system straining. In the cockpit, Damien plotted their course, while Ashara monitored for pursuit. "How did they find us?" he asked. "The facility. We must have triggered a silent alarm when we accessed the classified files." She pulled up tactical displays. "They're mobilizing forces across 3 sectors, looking for us." "Will we make it to the relay station?" "If we're lucky." Luck held for 20 hours. Then the pursuit ships appeared on their sensors. 4 vessels, Ashara said. "Military corvettes, faster than us, better armed." "Can we fight them?" "Not and win." Damien studied the tactical situation. They were still 6 hours from the relay station. The pursuing ships would intercept in 3. He looked at the star charts. at the gravitational eddies marked in red, at an idea forming that was either brilliant or suicidal. "The anomaly zones," he said, "we lead them in. That's death, even for you. Not if I have you guiding me telepathically." He met her eyes. "You can sense the gravitational shifts before they happen. Feed that to me through the bond, and I can navigate what they can't." She understood immediately. A human pilot with telepathic foresight, flying through chaos that would tear their pursuers apart. "It's insane," she said. "It's our only shot." She kissed him hard, fierce. "Then let's be insane together." Damien angled toward the nearest anomaly zone. The pursuing ships followed, confident in their superior firepower. They didn't understand what they were chasing. The first gravitational eddy hit like a hammer. Damien felt it through Ashara's awareness a half-second before it manifested, twisted the controls and let momentum carry them past. Behind them, one pursuit ship wasn't fast enough. It tumbled into the eddy and came apart. 3 ships left. Deeper into the zone. Space itself became unstable, gravity fluctuating in deadly patterns. Ashara's mind fed him constant updates: left, drop, climb, bank right. He didn't think, just reacted, letting her precognition merge with his instinct. Another ship gone, crushed by forces it never saw coming. The remaining 2 were better pilots, more cautious. They matched Damien's movements, staying just far enough back to anticipate the eddies. He needed something they couldn't predict. There, Ashara's voice in his mind. A collapse point forming. Dead ahead. In 30 seconds, it'll create a gravity well strong enough to pull in everything within 10 kilometers. Can we survive it? If we slingshot around the edge, use the pull to gain speed, then break free. And them? They won't expect it. By the time they realize what's happening, they'll be too close. Damien aimed straight for the forming collapse point. Every instinct screamed to veer away, but he trusted Ashara completely. Through the bond, he felt her confidence, her certainty. 20 seconds, the 2 ships followed. 10 seconds, space began to warp visibly ahead. 5 seconds, the first pursuit ship realized the danger and tried to break away. Too late. Damien hit the edge of the gravity well and let it grab them. The ship screamed, hull plating groaning under impossible forces. Then, he fired all thrusters at once, using the well's own momentum to slingshot them back toward normal space. Behind them, both pursuit ships tumbled into the collapse point and vanished. They cleared the anomaly zone with alarms blaring and half their systems offline, but they cleared it. Ashara was laughing, breathless and amazed. "You're completely insane." "Learned it from my emotions," Damien said and kissed her. The relay station appeared on their sensors 3 hours later. It was small, cobbled together from salvaged parts, bristling with antenna arrays. As they docked, a figure waited in the airlock, tall, willowy, with 4 arms and compound eyes that gleamed with curiosity. "Ashara," Navigator Kess said, "when you call in favors, you don't do it halfway." "We need to transmit data across every independent network you can reach," Ashara said. "What kind of data?" "The kind that ends governments." Kess studied them both, those compound eyes taking in their clasped hands the way they stood together. "This'll make you enemies of the Coalition." "We already are," Damien said. "Good." Kess's mandibles clicked in what might have been a smile. "I never liked those bastards anyway. Upload your data." They transmitted everything: weapon specifications, deployment orders, communications, proving Prelate Sorn and the High Council had authorized genocide disguised as natural disaster. Within minutes, it was spreading across 100 independent networks beyond the Coalition's ability to suppress. The galaxy would know the truth. Ashara leaned against Damien, exhausted but satisfied. Through the bond, he felt her relief, her hope, her love. Yes, love. The emotion was new to her, overwhelming, but she recognized it now. Recognized what she felt for this human who'd shown her what it meant to truly feel. "What now?" she asked. "Now we wait and see if the galaxy believes us. And if they don't, then we find another way." He wrapped his arms around her. "Whatever it takes." Kess returned with confirmation. "It's everywhere, every network, every system. The Coalition's trying to deny it, but the evidence is too strong." They paused. "You two started a revolution." Damien looked at Ashara. We started something anyway. 3 days later, the first messages arrived. Independent worlds demanding answers from the Coalition. Telepathic species horrified by what their governments had done. Humans across the galaxy learning they'd been targeted for extinction. The Coalition's power began to fracture. Prelate Sorn tried to maintain control, but the damage was done. Council members turned on each other. The High Command split into factions. Within weeks, the coalition that had ruled for millennia began its collapse. And through it all, Damien and Ashara stayed together. Two people who'd bridged an impossible gap, who'd proven that emotion wasn't weakness but strength, that connection could exist between the most unlikely souls. They didn't know what the future held. They'd made enemies who would hunt them for years. They'd changed the galaxy in ways they couldn't predict. But standing on the relay station's observation deck, watching the stars, they knew one thing with absolute certainty. Whatever came next, they'd face it together. Ashara took his hand, and through the bond, Damien felt everything she couldn't yet put into words. Hope for tomorrow, gratitude for today, and love, fierce, new, overwhelming love for the human who'd taught her how to feel. He pulled her close and kissed her as the galaxy turned around them, two hearts beating as one, two minds forever intertwined. The revolution had begun with a malfunction and a bond that shouldn't exist. It would reshape everything.